I should do more of these lives as well, to kind of get pulse and see what the community is looking like and how everybody's feeling. And then also to kind of vent on some things are, not in a single topic, but kind of a random assortment of ideas. But this time, I want to do something that's not really a broadcast or, a report, really. I just want to go over some, these are, at this point, facts of life. You see what I'm saying? So I want to wait a little bit to see if anybody's going to come on. But, a lot of times I get people to come back after I've done these and watch them. Um, and if I really wanted to do this full time, and I committed myself to doing it full time with the news broadcast, but I haven't fulfilled that obligation quite as regularly as I would like to. Um, I sacrifice some of my time to do it, but I can't do that. I can't do it every day like I would like to. And then not only that, interpreting the news every day will definitely be a tough thing to do from a prophetic perspective. So, we kind of have to chew on what they give us and then spew out the bad and accept the good. You have to analyze the way that the news, you know, breaks things down to you. You have to figure it out on your own, really. You have to test to see if the information is good, incorporate the information in prophecy. And a lot of times it's not so apparent. Um, but in this situation, in this understanding, it is apparent, because you have a people group right now that are claiming to be Jew and are not, but are actually the synagogue of Satan, right? We know that scripture from Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, and chapter 3, verse 9. Shalom, shalom, people on here. Shalom, shalom, Mishpachah. We know that from Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9, that during John's time, there was a people group in two cities, not just one, in two cities, in Smyrna and in Philadelphia. We are going over this now. Um, Me and the boys are going over this now. But in two different cities, there were a group that were calling themselves, or were secretly, the synagogue of Satan. A group of people that were claiming to be Jewish, of Israelite origin, of Hebrew lineage, but actually the synagogue of Satan, right? And this is in the time of John in the first century AD, you know, 2,000 years ago, just under 2,000 years ago. You have this people group which were claiming to be Jews and were not actually Jews, you guys. And so that's not the same people group as the people that are in Israel today. I know a lot of people will use that scripture and say, look, there they are then. But it's not. That people group at that time, the Ashkanazim, they were just coming out of the caves and the clefts of the rocks and the mountains and the Uric steppe, and just being really, for the past possibly 400 or 500 years, made any sort of dent in history whatsoever. This is the first appearance of the type of people that came out of the Eurasian steppe, and then went on to become the Ashkanazim, you guys. It's the first appearance of them at about 500 or so BC, you guys. While the Hebrews had been around since, the Chaldeans been around since forever. The Egyptians been around since forever. The Medes been around since forever. Even the Romans have the Kittim, which were a people group that were known and had been around for a long time, considerably less than everybody else, but had been around. This particular people group was a people group that had no imprint in history before, at all. And so these Ashkenazim really came up and started to control the world, you guys, they converted in mass um, 1,000 years ago during the reign of King Bulan. And we know this because there was a letter that, and people who do this research will be able to just, look this up. You could look up King Bulan of Khazar. He was the one that converted his entire nation of about 1 million people, 1 million people in Ukraine. This is the area of Ukraine. Kiev was the ancient capital of Khazaria, right? And so his people converted in mass with him to Judaism 1,000 years ago. We know this because his son or grandson, King Joseph, now see from Bulan to Joseph in 2 generations, King Joseph wrote to actual Hebrew communities, actual Jewish communities in Spain, or was it the opposite way? There was a guy in Spain that heard of this large and vast Jewish community in Ukraine and wrote to this king. And the king responded and said, no, well, because the Israelite in, he's in Spain, but he's writing King Joseph, asking him if they were the 10 lost tribes that had been prophesied to return. And King Joseph writes back and says, no, we are not. We are descendants of Togamo under Japheth. We've read the genealogies and can match this particular name to an ancient ancestor. So no, those are not the people that today are called the synagogue of Satan, or are secretly the synagogue of Satan. The people in Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9 are not those people. That was a whole different group of people. You guys, if you've been on this channel for any amount of time, you'll know that there were many different iterations of people be Jewish, right? Some in a righteous manner, and then others in an unrighteous manner. We know that the Samaritans, according to Josephus, would pretend to be of Hebrew origin, when the Southern Israelites were doing well, but when they were not, they would change their affiliation and be something else. They are originally Persians, Cuthians. They would pretend to be of Hebrew origin because they were in Israel. And this is from the time that Israel, northern Israel collapsed. So about 700 BC. From that time on, the Samaritans have been in that land. And we know that, in the coming generations, they adopted Israelite ancestry when it was most convenient, when there were country opportunists. You see what I'm saying? That when they saw that the Israelites to the south were doing good, they would, feign relation. And then when they weren't, they would disassociate. So that's one group, that's one ancient group that would pretend to be Hebrews right there, right in front of your face. Another ancient group is found in the book of Esther. And we can go over this, but we've gone over it on this book of Esther. I think it's chapter 8, when Haman is killed because of his treachery. And then that treachery that Mordecai ends up in the end benefiting from. And then not only Mordecai, but all of the nation of Israel scattered through the 128 provinces of Persia. We know that then the Israelites have an opportunity to seek vengeance on their enemies. Remember, that was one thing, that was one condition of Haman's treachery, that the Jews, not only Mordecai was going to see vengeance or retribution, but that all Jews all over the provinces of Persia had an opportunity at that point to seek retribution on their enemies. And in a lot of these different lands, in Persian lands, and from Persian people, they would, instead of being retributed against, they would just circumcise themselves and become Jews. We know that from Esther chapter 8. It says, and many people became Jews, instead of being killed. Do you see what I'm saying? Many of the Jews' enemies, while they were in captivity in the Persian Empire, if you call it captivity, it's a semi-captivity. While they were in semi-captivity in Persia, the enemies of the Jews become seeking to escape from retribution. So that's a whole other community of Persian and then whichever other provinces that contained Jews and enemies of the Jews, that there was a mass conversion in the fifth century. It'd be the 5th century BC, order of the king. Do you see what I'm saying? So that group didn't just vanish, it went on to propagate. Do you see what I'm saying? And then in the following, centuries, you then have not a people group, but a like persuasion, a religious mindset, a denomination, if you will, called the Pharisees, right? And the term Pharisee is actually the same word for Persia. So that doesn't mean that the Pharisees were Persians and that group is now the Persian Jews themselves and became Jews from Esther. That doesn't mean that, because people will go down that road to kind of try to clear, our ancestors from any wrongdoing. No, we were the Persia, we were the Pharisees, and we were the ones with all that false doctrine. But we picked a lot of it up from Persia, from being in Persia. A lot of the angel demonology understanding comes from the gods of Persia. I'm saying, and being able to identify and cross-identify these entities in different cultures and then recognize them for who they were in reality. Revelation chapter 12, chapter 9. Revelation chapter 9, they talk about the angel of the bottomless pit, who is in Hebrew called Abaddon, but in Greek called Apollyon. We know that we're not supposed to say the names of the fallen ones or of other deities. I use that only in teaching context, but we know that Apollyon is the Greek god Apollo, that there's this one and the same. The ancient name for Apollo, what the Greeks would have called him, would have been Apollyon or Apollon. So the modern term, the ancient term, is the one that we see in the scripture. So we know that there are cross-cultural beliefs that are in other religions and true, but just out of context, right? The God that is in Greece is the God of music, right? But in Hebrew, he angel of the bottomless pit, the bad guy, not no musical nothing, just the bad guy, right? And so we recognize that there's truth that is in other religions, but people don't necessarily recognize it in God. We know him to be a fallen angel, right? We know that. So just in the same fashion, the Pharisee or the Hebrews being in Persia would have seen and interacted with Persian religion and then also recognize entities from their religion as demonic figures, but also adopt some of the tenets and some of the ways of the Persians. And so it's not surprising to have a Hebrew group of people that are coming themselves the Persians or the Pharisees. We even have that word Phares is everywhere. So Phares to set apart or to set yourself apart. And so the Pharisees are using that as, a term that they can just say, oh, we're the set apart ones. But it's a dual understanding because it also means Persia. That word Persia is the same word as Farsi. Farsi is Persia because the P and the F are the same sound in ancient understanding. That's why PH makes an F sound, right? So the word Pharisee is the English word parse. If you've taken any Hebrew, you understand that there is a term called parsing that is used to break down Hebrew verbs. And so if you're able to break down a Hebrew verb, that's called parsing. If you can break down the term into its form, because the Hebrew verbs take on many different forms, just like in English. So the forming a word, a Hebrew verb, is called parsing. So even in English, that word exists, and we get it from ancient Persia, right? And so to say that that group that was coming out of Persia was around a lot of other people, some of those people converting to Judaism around the 5th century BC, if I'm not mistaken, 5th or 6th century BC, the time of Ezra, Nehemiah, Mordecai, Hadassah, Esther, right? So that's another group. We have identified the Samaritans and then identified the group that was around during the Persian time. Do you see what I'm saying? So those are two groups of Jews that were not actually Jews, that would have been circumcised and everything. Edomites. Edomites would have been the closest thing to being, Israelite, because, Edom is Jacob's brother. So Edomites in the first century BC, first or second century BC, second century BC, were conquered by one of the Hyrcanus sons, right? One of the people from the Maccabean dynasties, you guys. So I can't remember if it was, Maccabee's son or grandson down the line. He was one of the Hyrcanus kings, one of the Hyrcanus generals. There's a couple Hyrcanuses. So he was one of them. He led a campaign into Edom and converted all of the Edomites, the whole nation of Edom, into Judaism, so much so that only 100, 200 years later, we have Jewish kings coming from Edom, the Herodians. Do you see what I'm saying? So that whole nation was flipped, if you will, Jewish. You see what I'm saying? And that's a good thing because they are introduced to the truth. The king of all creation. Yahweh is the name that we use for Elohim, the Most High. People will call him God. People will say Yahweh. We understand the pronunciation of the Tetragrammaton as Yah or Yao. So this is another group. The Edomite. We've identified the Edomites. We've identified the Samaritans, and we identified the people from the Persians. And so beyond that, you have groups that are in the first century in Smyrna, which is in Asia Minor, and then also I believe is also in Asia Minor. Yeah, they're both in Asia Minor. And so these are two different groups that are identified by Messiah as being a group of secret Jews that are pretending to be Jews but are actually devil worshippers. And now, I mean, I go a long, long way to say, even though those two groups that were in Smyrna and Philadelphia 2,000 years ago are not the modern group, that same pattern, that same exact pattern exists today, except in a different family. And we know it to be the Ashkanazim, that they've been pretending to be actual Jews for the past 500 years. And they've been able to, since then, stay and become rich and famous off of this, I guess you could say, stolen identity. Do you see what I'm saying? Shalom, shalom, Zort. How are you doing? I haven't seen you on here before. Bro, I didn't sleep. Yeah, welcome everybody around. We're talking about, we're actually talking about the saddest group of people on the planet right now. A very cursed people who, are themselves put into a wild position by their own heritage and ancestry, which is wild, which is a wild thing to think about. Because these Ashkenazim, and this is getting to the point of what we're talking about, these Ashkenazim are trapped. They're trapped in their own lie. They're literally trapped in a historical lie. Do you see what I'm saying? Because they can't, Wessel Manzor. It looks like this is somebody else. This is a whole other person, who is, doing the same emojis as Zort. So I guess these are troll farms or bot farms that probably, have flagged my video title, and so that, that so that we can get some some I guess disturbance. This would be a disturbance. So yeah, besides that, you're talking about a group of people that are trapped in a lie. You see what I'm saying? They're trapped in a lie because the people know. The people in Israel know that they're not Israelites. The Ashkanazim know it, just like everybody else knows it all over the world. What do you think? That they've been living in a cave? They haven't been living in a cave for at least 1,500 or 2,000 years. So, I guess that's trying to come off slick. I'm not trying to come off slick here. We know that the Magogites did come from some meager positions. So, not trying to even use that against them, but they haven't been in a cave for the past 2,000 years. Or the past 500 years. They know that they're not Israelites. The entire world, the entire will say, no, you're not Israelites. And then the entire white supremacist world will say, no, you're not Israelites. And I guess the Arabs and the Nazis, but they're not, at least about that part, they're not lying. They both can look at history and tell, wait, there's something wrong with this lineage, especially named Ashkenaz. And Ashkenaz is a named son of Japheth. Do you see what I'm saying? Or grandson of Japheth. You see what I mean? You see how you can't be Japhetic and Semitic? You can't come from both of those inheritances. You got to be one or the other. So what the problem is that the people have been benefiting from the last 100 years, hand over foot, you guys. And some families longer than that. We know the Rothschilds have been benefiting for the past 500 years from this false heritage. But the thing is, you guys, they know, but they cannot say anything against it. Their whole community will ostracize them. Their whole people will, turn their back on them. And maybe even worse than that, if they say something different. If they start saying we are not the people of Israel, whoa, then you have a real problem. Then you have a you you can say, oh well, how do you know that they know? Um, we know that they know. I personally know that they know from two situations that I've had, with Ashkenazim people, and they were both of the situations were with people that were Orthodox, right? They were dressed in the whole getup, right? The first situation, the first situation, I used to talk about a lot, and I've talked about it on this channel a lot. I've talked about it on this channel a lot. It was from when I was in college, and I was finishing up my thesis, and the topic was the name Yahuwah, the name of God. I believe I called it the name of God. And at that point, we used the interpretation Yahuwah. But now we know that interpretation is false, and we have changed over to one that there has an overwhelming amount of evidence for. There's lots of videos on this channel talking about the name of Yahweh. So you can go check those videos out. But at that time, and this has been a few years ago, I was under the name of Yahuwah, and I was writing a 30-page paper and making a presentation, or pronunciation was correct. And then talk about this for a little while. I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. See, we've got a whole other person on here. Can you speak French? I wonder what that has to do with anything. So we'll just move on. So Yeah, I'm sitting there and I'm in Starbucks. Y'all don't get on me for eating Starbucks or supporting Starbucks. I'm there using the internet and typing my paper up. But so I'm there. I'm there my paper and going over my notes and getting everything situated. It's real close to the due date. Y'all, if I got water in my beard, if it looks like I got stuff in my beard, I just got out the shower. It's just water. But it's coming up to the due date, so I'm kind of, you know, what do you call it? Slammed with work to do. So I've got my head down, really, working things out. And I look up and I see two Ashkanazim, in full Orthodox get up, come in, and sit down at a table not far from me. And I'm facing them and wearing a full garment to the foot, a white garment to the foot. And I've got my zeets on the end. I've got the full border zeets, not the four. I've got the full border. So, and that's a whole discussion too. Of is it full border or is it just the wings, right? We believe it to be a combination of both, but I will wear either or on occasion. So, with that being said, I've got my head down. I'm cramming into this paper. I'm trying to get it knocked out. Um, and these two guys come in. They notice me. I notice them. And I see them pointing and looking. I see kind of sizing me up. And I'm thinking, okay, well, they're going to call me over. I'm trying to keep my head down and not pay a whole lot of attention to them. But I keep on looking and see that they're looking at me and kind of like pointing and looking. And I say to them, or they say to me, hey, come over here for a second. And I say, here we go, right? And so I get up, I go on over there, and I introduce myself. I'm Yerd Yahoo. And they introduced one of the guys' names was Zeb, right? And he said Zeb means wolf. So he wanted me to know he was a wolf. So anyway, I sit down and I'm sitting down with them, and it's two guys, right? One of them, and I said, one of them is American that had been converted to Judaism a long time ago. He may have been 30, 40 years in Judaism. He was an older guy. And then the other guy was, I guess, a few years younger than me, but was from Israel, was an Ashkanazim from, their Ashkenazi heritage, right? He was, you know, quote unquote a Jew, an Ashkenazi Jew. So he was the person from Israel, and the other guy, who was the older guy, was an American. And I could tell that the older guy was really the teacher because he spoke with authority, he spoke the most, just, yeah, yeah, yeah. You see what I'm saying? And he wasn't so much younger. He was in his 30s. And I was in my 30s at the time. So he was considerably younger than the older gentleman, but he wasn't that much younger than me. So he wasn't in his 20s. He's, close to the same age that I am. And so we're sitting there talking, and he said, so what, or they said, so what's up with this? What's up with you? Look at why you dressed like this. Oh, well, we believe that the African Americans are the real people of Israel, that we are the chosen of Elohim. Um, we identify this from the curses in Deuteronomy 26 and the loss of inheritance from Jeremiah 17. Strong biblical evidence, and then also tracing ourselves historically in from captivity to captivity. This is how we reckon ourselves as being, by prophecy, being the real Jews. And the older American guy, is like, rah, 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 he's got so much stuff to say. Oh, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? You know about this? Well, yeah, yeah, but none of that is going to outperform prophecy. Do you see what I'm saying? And as I'm talking, I see the younger guy, and this is what the older guy is so involved in the conversation. He's an American, and Americans got a whole different style of programming than people that were raised in Israel. Americans are programmed too. People that are in Ashkanazim from Israel, they call them Israelis. They're programmed too, right? They're programmed. So this is weird. There's a bunch of weird stuff going on here in the chat. But they're programmed too, the Israelis, just in a different way, right? They're programmed with their style of propaganda. But in the midst of that propaganda, there's also some truth that slips out. Apparently, on some TV show, at some point, I was watching, if you guys have seen Gil Schuster. He's a Ashkenazi Jewish guy that goes into Israel, or has been, I don't know, I think he's still doing it, goes into Israel and asks Palestinians, Arabs, and Israelis, kind of tough questions like, what do you think about Christians to the Israelis? Or, what do you think about a two-state system to the Palestinians? And, kind of difficult questions. And so from these questions, one of the questions that he asked, I think that you come from Ashkenaz. And one of the guys says, yeah, I think so. There was a TV show about it. There was some sort of TV show that kind of described this whole thing. And, I noticed, wait a second, TV show. So they have this concept of the Khazars as being their ancestors from TV, right? Do you think that do you think that you're really Jewish, or do you come from Ashkenaz? Not Ashkenaz, from Khazar. So I think I said Ashkenaz before. Do you think that you come from Khazar? Yeah, there was a TV show about it. So they knew. So they know. So on TV in Israel, they're people that they're lying. Do you see what I'm saying? They show it, but in a context for them and just them to see it. Do you see what I'm saying? That same style of program is not going to be happening in America, but it is in Israel, because the Israeli government wants the people to know that they're lying, because this again is the synagogue of Satan, and the devil don't come to do nothing but lie and then also turn you into a liar. Do you see what I'm saying? So he tells you the truth so that you can lie it later, so you can know that you're lying, so you don't have any excuse for saying, oh, well, we didn't know. No, you know. It's on TV in Israel. Meanwhile, this American guy, older, you know, Judaism teacher, may not actually know. He may not actually know. He may think he's doing, he's right where he's supposed to be, doing what he's supposed to do, right? So when the older guy is, scruffing at me, because he's scruffing at me, I see the younger guy. The younger guy is sitting there next to him, four-man table. I'm sitting across from them, and they two are on the same side. And so the younger guy's in front of me, and the older guy's next to him, right? And so the younger guy leans back in his chair, because the older guy's, in conversation, deep in conversation with me. He leans back in his chair, just out of eyesight from the older guy. And as the older guy's talking, he's looking at me behind the guy's head, like, telling me behind his teacher's back, because I recognize him to be the older and the teacher, behind the teacher's back, that the things that I was saying believed too, that he didn't want his American teacher to recognize that he knew what was true, and that he knew that he wasn't really an ancient Jew. He was a modern Jew. For some reason, they teach that in Israel, but not publicly, privately, and in a method where people will hear it, understand it, and continue their daily lie. That's what I'm saying. They're continuing their daily lie. You see what I mean? This guy, Gil Schuster, went around to random people, and the random people, a lot of the random people that he ran into, had heard of the Khazars. Some of them said, no, I've never heard of that. But it sounds true because we're Europeans. We're not Israelis. We're not Jewish. We're European. We understand that being European is not the same thing as being Semitic. We understand. Now, you had some people that say, oh, well, no, I don't believe that. We understand that we're the true people, and this is how we know. We have the books to know and all this other stuff. But they're lying because their neighbor, the people that they ask next, Gil Schuster, the person that he asked next, says, know that we can't be because of our racial characteristics, because of our history, because of this Khazar theory. This Khazar concept. That's how we know, because they've told us on TV in, so many words. You see what I mean? So the juxtaposition of the different understandings was very clear. And the person who had to hide the truth was the Jew, was the false Jew, the Ashkanazim. He couldn't have the conversation that he wanted to have with me because that would out him. And not only out him, his whole nation. So he had to be careful what he said. Didn't even say it in front of the person who was of a different heritage than him. They're both from Magog. They're both Europeans, right? Because he is a European, but he couldn't admit that in front of the other European. That means he's trapped. He's trapped in that lie, literally trapped in the lie, to where that he may believe that one day the lie will come out and he will become like a a like a fugitive, and a fugitive and a vagabond upon the earth. Do you see what I'm saying? That the Israelis, the Ashkenazi Jews, all of them, from the top down, all of them are in fear. Because of that, they are in bondage. They are in bondage. So they are super sad. We know because anytime the bombs start dropping on them, they're packing the airports. Forget this. I'm not dying for this lie. I'll take the lie while it's benefiting me. But if a bomb lands on me, what good is the lie going to do? No, I'm in the airport to die of the lie. That's the real reason why they're packing airports. Scripture says that the Israelites in Israel in the last days will dwell in peace and safety. Well, none will be able to harm them. You see what I'm saying? None will be able to harm them. So you don't believe that? So why are now you don't believe in the Iron Dome anymore? We've seen the Iron Dome allow rockets to go through because this past time we had never seen so many rockets through. But we know the Ashkanazim don't mind killing their own people. We know that, right? This is something that we know. Yeah, I'm trying to interact with you guys, but I keep getting a bunch of bots. You see what I'm saying? What's up? What's going on, Melissa? Shalom, shalom. Keep getting a bunch of bots. It's definitely not the regular crew. But so they know, you guys. That tells me from watching the interviews, the street interviews in Israel, that they know. What, from my own personal interaction with Zeb, he knew. He knew. He leaned back behind his teacher and said, and couldn't say anything publicly. He knew. I had another situation. I was in this vacation because, you have these conferences with manufacturers and you have these, is a conference that happens once a year. And this year was in Orlando, and it's a manufacturers conference. So you go, even if you're not a manufacturer yourself, you go to meet other manufacturers and schmooze and, pass out your card. They give you yours. They give you theirs. So, you go to these events to kind of get your name out there. And then I had a client in Orlando, so I was able to kind of schmooze with that client too. So a business vacation, basically. So I go there and I'm, in my regular clothes because I'm not, looking to make a statement with my outfit like I was while I was in education. So I didn't dress for business. I didn't dress with a full head to toe white garment on, right? So I could, terrify everybody in there. But I did have my ZZs. Like I said, I will wear both styles of ZZs since it appears in the text that both styles are, I'm sorry, you guys. It does appear that in the text. And some of my garments have both, right? So I'm wearing the four corner on the wings ZZs, and they're blue. But I noticed that at this conference, a whole bunch of Ashkanazim, right? And they're in their whole get up. They're in the hat and the black jacket, black hat, black jacket, black slacks, right? So where does that come from? What part of Hebrew culture is that from, right? So regardless of that, they've got the white. If you've noticed, these Orthodox Jews, these Orthodox Ashkanazim, they wear the long white ZZs. And I never did know why until after the fact, and did a little bit of research and found out that since nobody knows what the actual color is, that there's an argument between it being blue or purple. And at some point in time, that the people who were adopting the color for the ZZs couldn't identify the actual color, because it's called a techolate, and it's from a snail that exists in the Mediterranean. And, it's not just accessible to everybody. And that color is a very specific color. It's somewhere in between blue and purple. We don't actually know. It's translated as blue, but it could actually be purple, you guys. So you do your research on that. I've got some garments with blue, but since these Ashkenazim coming in, these Johnny come lately guys, didn't know exactly what the color was, they stopped wearing it altogether. And I think this is probably because, actual Jews were, interacting with them and saying that's not the color. And so, like we can do sometimes. And so it became to where that they would for the excuse of not knowing what the color was, they would say, "Oh, the color is too holy to wear." We don't want to upset the holiness of the color by so we're just not gonna wear the color. We're gonna keep the color a secret. And so you know how folks do when they're trying to justify their doctrines in the text, right? And so that's what they were doing. So that's what I saw. I saw a whole bunch of people wearing these long white zits down to the floor, right? And so I'm in the conference again. I see all the Ashkenazim there, and I'm not paying really no attention. I'm just really noticing, wow, there's a lot of Orthodox Jews here, and so I'm doing my. I've passed my cards out. I've got a whole handful of cards myself. I got a stack of cards myself. Just being a salesman, because that's what I do. It's part of what I do. But I'm taking a break. I'm sitting down, and I'm gonna have me a smoothie, a coffee, a smoothie, or something. So I'm sitting down, and I've got my smoothie, and I see this guy looking, and I'm thinking, oh, here we go. But he comes up, and he's like, "Yeah, man, what's up? What's up?" And this guy is younger. I'm out of college time, so I'm older. I'm in my late 30s or mid to late 30s, and this guy is in his 20s, for sure in his 20s, a young guy. You see what I'm saying? And so he comes up to me and he says, "Yo, what's up with that? What's up with that?" And I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" Yeah. What's up with that? What's up with these? What's up? I said, "Oh, okay. Well, you know, we believe that we are the true Israelites of the Bible. These are my zitzis." And he said, yeah. But why you so mad though? I'm like, "What you mean? We just sitting here talking. I'm not mad at you, right?" He said, "Yes, you are. You're mad. You're mad at me." And I said, "I'm not mad at you. You recognize that you're called Ashkenazi Jews. So did you know that you guys come from the Khazars, King Bulan, King Joseph?" "Yeah, I've heard about that. I don't know. I've heard it in passing. I don't really know anything about it. But why you so mad though? I said, I'm not mad. He said, what about the couple in New Jersey? New Jersey? Oh yeah, I heard about that couple. Turns out they ain't had nothing to do with whatever crime that you're saying that they could. Oh, they shot at these people. They was, threatening people. Nothing to do with that. You need to go back and do an update on that story because the what was first reported is untrue. And I had heard this before because of course we keep our eyes on the news to see when they're going to set up the false flag to come get us because we know it's coming, right? And so this couple from New Jersey committed some kind of crime, and they were an Israelite couple, and it was a violent crime. But turns out that the whole situation that they reported on was fabricated. They tried to use their religion, as the reason behind, whatever the attack was. Turned out none of it was true. Turned out that there was a whole news just didn't follow up on it. Do you see what I'm saying? And neither did this guy, right? And so I said, oh, turn out that that wasn't about nothing anyway. You need to go get updated. Yeah, but you guys are mad. You're on the corners. Like, yeah, some guys are on the corners yelling, but they're not mad. Do we look mad? Does it look? I'm not one of those guys that's on the corner. Do I look mad right now? I'm talking to you just like everybody else. Say, yeah, but you guys are mad. And so I thought that was just a weird interaction with somebody that automatically assumed that I was upset with him when I wasn't. I'm talking to him just like a regular person. He approached me. So how can I be upset with you if you approach me and I'm freely talking to you like, I've known you, like we know each other. We sitting down having a coffee, having a smoothie. And anytime you wanna talk, well, I gave him my card, he gave me his. You see what I'm saying? He was from Brooklyn. That's the thing. He was from Brooklyn, and he was the owner of a plumbing company in Brooklyn. So I bet he made a lot of money. I know these guys are rich, but, I took his card, and he took mine, and he said, yeah, okay, well, I'll hit you up sometime. And I never heard from him, of course. I never reached out or anything like that to him. But, yeah, the dude assumed I was angry with him. Oh, the dude's owner. Oh, this couple. Yeah, whatever reason, you're mad. And I'm not even mad to him like, he's a human being because he is, you know. But the reason why he assumed that I'm mad is because he knows he's living a lie. He's living a lie that check this out, you guys. He's living a lie that there's nothing he can do about. He's living a lie of heritage told in his family for, by this time, hundreds of years. A lie that they all know is a lie. And that you know is a lie, that I know is a lie, as a lie too. He knows that I know that his people are lying. But the psychological aspect of it is what the real deal root of his response is that, hey, I know that this is a lie, my life. I know now that you know this is a lie, but you should also know that there's nothing I can do about it. I was born into this lie just like you were. And even though you're able to come out of it with your understanding or whatever that has brought you to understanding the truth, I can't. So why you mad at me about it? It's not like I'm the one that started the lie. You see what I'm saying? That's the only way psychologically could you continue to push me and force me to say for somehow I'm mad is if you think that I have a reason to be mad. And we did get into this conversation. Hey, some people, you know, the way that you should be mad, right? Oh, yeah, I should be mad that you're walking around with my inheritance, with my country, and with all the benefits that come along with that. Even though it's in falsehood, even though it's the synagogue of Shaitan, the world belongs to Shaitan, so it appears as if you're the people. And the real people, should be mad about that. So he assumes we all guilty person that looks at the person that they robbed from suspiciously. You see what I'm saying? Like, yo, you not mad that I just stole this from you? You don't understand that my father stole it from your father? Don't be mad at me. The only reason I got it is because my granddad stole it from your granddad. Not my fault. I woke up this way just like you did. Psychologically, that's even though I'm telling them I'm not. I'm sitting here straight in his face. Even with the Israelites on the corner that do seem mad, there's no violence. You seen what my people look like when we're mad. You know what that looks like. So why are you assuming now, hear me being in front of you talking like a regular person, history, assuming that you may not know, why you think I'm mad? The only reason why is because you're already apprehensive. And then you're already feeling guilty about what you know that your father did. That's the only way, you guys. The only way you can continually say how mad I am when I'm in your face, happy and smiling, you guys. I'm not mad at all. People, you think I should be mad. And so you've automatically put oh, you're guilty. And you're, dwelling on the fact that you're the guilty party and assume that I know that you're guilty and am mad about it. I'm not mad about it. This is what happened. We lost our heritage, you guys. It wasn't them that took it from us. It's us that set it down. So what am I? Well, I'm going to be mad? No, I'm not mad at all. This is the way. How else would we know anything about prophecy unless it came to pass? This is prophecy coming to pass. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy that I can look at the text and identify who I am and who I by the condition. I'm happy that I can also identify you by the condition. It's just you that thinks somehow that because I can identify what's going on in the world, I'm going to be mad at you about it. The only way you do that is if you feel guilty already. Somebody stolen from you and they're walking around like, what's up? Huh? What you got? What? You see what I mean? So they're walking around like that all the time. They have this notion in the back of their heads all the time. They are literally trapped in history. They're trapped in the history that they've created for themselves. They're trapped there. Some of them guys weren't paying attention. The 12-day war, when they were allowing the Iranian bombs to drop on the Ashkanazim heads, when they were allowing people to get killed so this fake war can look real, because we haven't seen that many bombs hit Israel ever, really. Maybe one or two will get through, but you've got volleys of missiles that's hitting Israel this time that somehow these systems are failing. You see what I'm saying? Come on. So now, to make the lie more believable, you got to be there in Israel to get bombed. Do you know they put a cease order on Israelis from leaving Israel during this conflict? The Minister of Travel said no out of Israel during the time of the war. They stopped the people from moving so that they could be bombed to make the war look realistic. And it's actually a regime change for Iran. They didn't take out the head guy, Khomeini, took out all his staff. So they're just going to replace him with new staff, new AI-driven staff. AI compliant staff, because that's what they really want. That's the real nuclear weapon, is AI technology, you guys. So now that you've seen Trump, we're going to make a whole new agreement in the Middle East after. Now this is the peace process. We can come together under the AI banner, and then we can all upgrade to our oppressive authoritarian regimes, even technology. Now we can control people better and watch people better. And your old nuclear panel scientists are old hat. Instead of getting rid of them, just tell, hey, have a nice day. Let's just go ahead and kill them and make this war look real, you guys. That's what he did. That's what's going on right now. And guess what? They did not allow their citizens to leave and dodge it. The citizens don't want to die for the lie. That's why the airports are filled whenever there's some sort of war threat. The airports are filled because they don't want to die for the lie. All that peace and safety crap goes out the window because they know it to be a false prophecy, you guys. They're not standing around and saying, oh, well, nothing can touch me. Why? Because they know they're not the people. They know that they can get touched. They know that the day is coming when everybody will recognize it. That makes them the saddest people in the world. Their government is shooting civilian women and children at aid trucks. Their military is playing red light, green light with deadly consequences at aid stations where people are coming for food. You're talking about some really, really disgusting and evil things the Israeli army is doing right now. And all that they have to deal with being these evil people. They have to lie and make excuses for how evil they are. And they have to do it all the time. They live in the lie. They are chained to it, physically chained to it, because during the war, when the bombs were dropping, they were not allowed to leave. You guys, the Ashkanazims are slaves to history. They're cursed. They're living a cursed life. Even though it seemed like a charmed life, it's a charmed trick. You see what I'm saying? It's a curse. It looks like a gift, but it's actually a curse. In our side, what looks like a curse is actually a gift. It is a curse, it's a for real, but it's actually a gift. Remember, the gift of Elohim is without repentance. That means there's nothing that anybody can do to keep the actual Hebrews, the actual Jews, the actual Israelites from their inheritance. The only people that can, listen, you guys, the only people that can take the inheritance from us is us, because Elohim said it belongs to you. Elohim said that you'll always have it. The people that can put it down for anybody to pick it up is us. So what we got, who we got to be mad at? If you know, you should know that. You see what I'm saying? But since you think I'm mad, it lets me know that you know you're living the lie. And now I know that you're stuck in that lie. You see what I'm saying? Now I know you're a prisoner in that falsehood. And that's sad, you guys. These people that have to go around faking the funk every day are the saddest people in the world, you guys. You almost, let me tell you, almost feel sorry for them. Okay, you guys, this is Yerid Yao. Peace and blessings to you all in the name of Yahweh and through his son, Yahusha. Shalom, shalom, y'all.